Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird brain, it's a plane, it's iWalter. Yes, it's iWalter, strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. iWalter, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend ears with his annoying voice, and who disguised as Walter Interranti, mild-mannered janitor for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, nonsense, and the American way. And now, another exciting episode in the adventures of iWalter.
Hey everyone, this is Walter from iWalter. Yeah, I'm actually doing a show on Thursday morning or Wednesday night. Now, I kind of did not want to do one, but I'm going to do one anyway because there's a lot I want to talk about. So why don't you just wait till the weekend, Walter? Well, one thing, I started a new job, and it's hopefully just a temporary job because, heaven forbid, folks, I mean, the job is great. The people are wonderful, but I'm just like, I'm not as quick as everybody else at this other job. It's very hard compared to what I used. I thought what I had before was hard. This job is like really hard. So the people are great. They're they work well together. They're very friendly, but I just can't imagine me staying there very long before they would want to get rid of me. Anyway, once again, excuse me, I keep on belching. I just ate something before I decided to do this podcast, which I actually was thinking about it tonight at work. The job is great because it's around where I live too, which is really nice. But yeah, what was I going to say? It's the 18th of October. Now, this really sucks. Not to be a prick, but I was actually hoping. There's my Doctor Who doc. I love the new Doctor Who, actually. I actually was hoping to start after Halloween because Halloween is one holiday. I know it's for, technically, if you look at most people, they're going to say that's for kids. A lot of adults celebrate Halloween, and that's one day. It's like 2 days out of the year I will take off. I will take vacation time, personal time, or anything else. And the one time is Halloween because I like doing something on Halloween. I just hate working. The other time I don't like working is on my birthday, which is February 7th. So I don't know why. It's just like they're like, to me, they're like the two best days of that I don't want to work. I wouldn't say much about my birthday, but I would say about Halloween is definitely something I like doing. So I had a couple things I wanted to talk about. I just don't know which order. I can't believe it's already the 18th. This month has gone incredibly fast. And heaven forbid, because I opened my big mouth, I told people I have my own podcast and I do video podcast and audio podcasts and things like that. And it's a mess right now. But, yeah, it's bad because maybe they're actually listening and they'll be like, kind of like, well, this is the same guy we work with because he's really quiet or just really jumpy or, needs some medications to calm him down because he's like bouncing off walls in one way or another. I'm like and without the mic and the setup I have right now, I am a very hyper person. Like my what do you call it? Fortress of Solitude, my TARDIS, if you're a Doctor Who fan like me, is being not only in my room, but also being on the air. That's where I feel the most relaxed and the most comfortable. Away from this domain and the mic, and over there you can't see, there's a camera, a webcam. That is where I'm most comfortable. In front of people, I am horrible. Because I think, I mentioned this before, but I think Howard Stern was like that. Like, he's a mess and very insecure with himself and other people outside of this, out of his recording studio or whatever you want to call it, where he did his shows or still does. I'm the same way. You take me out of my domain, I'm like actually like a fish out of water. So I actually did, after I saw this past Sunday's episode of Doctor Who, it was like, you know what? This is really good. This is excellent. I mean, I already was sold on Jodie Whittaker playing the new Doctor Who, and it's, again, the first time a woman played it. Woohoo! But she did a really good job. The second episode was so well put together. It was an excellent episode all the way around, not just with Whittaker, which she already sold me, like I said, God, I got to move things. I'm very OCD, yes. But yeah, she really sold me. So I try to write something because I actually order these episodes I already ordered the season pass on iTunes. So it was like, okay, there was other people making comments about the new Doctor Who. I'm going to do one because I've been a fan since I was 12 years old. I'm 51. So it's been, like 40-some years that I've been watching the show. I should be allowed to have some say in a program that I still enjoy after 40-some years. So I wrote something, and they never posted it. It's like, wow, so you're going to post stuff from people who've only watched a show for a few months or maybe a few years. You don't want somebody's opinion who actually, I hate to say this, but who might matter more than somebody who really doesn't understand the back story on Doctor Who and where it's, how it's evolved over the years. So obviously they don't want to hear me. So, because they never posted my thing. That really pissed me off, by the way. Why it should, I don't know, because it's something I enjoy. It's like something I really enjoy. Well, like I told the guy at work tonight, I enjoy doing these podcasts. And I do. Actually, I'd rather do like what I used to, like make up short scripts and do storyboards and shoot things outside in some building or something like that. But I just don't have the time. And as I gotten older, I really don't have the patience, I guess, either. But this is really what is me. I feel comfortable doing this stuff. I don't feel comfortable going to 9-to-5 jobs, but that's what I have to do for the rest of my life. I'll be doing that until the day I die, I guess. Heaven forbid. I don't even want to think about that. So anyway, anywho, as my friend Matt would say, another friend, Todd, had sent me this story. I think it was like 2 days ago. I was like, dude, I really got to jump on this and make a story. My friend Todd is coming down this weekend, Saturday until Monday morning. So he'll basically see me off to work, I guess, on Monday. But anyway, he wanted to do a podcast this weekend as well. Maybe check out the area. He hasn't been around here in over a year, he said. And a lot has changed in the Valley Forge, King of Prussia area within that year's span. I mean, a lot has changed. Way too much, actually. So he wants to check around, but he really enjoys, I guess. He wants to do one of these. I'm trying to look at the camera for a second. One of these video podcasts. I'll tell you one thing. It was funny. I was talking to a gentleman who started where I did. He just started tonight. And I have to say, wow, dude, we're in different places because we're only like 2 years age difference. And he's like, I don't know how else to think about it, but a lot more responsible than I am. I hate to say it. And more, what do you call it? Where he should be at our age than I am. And it's just my upcoming, my background. I mean, I had a rough upcoming as a child and had a lot of problems as a kid. So that kind of placed me back almost like a decade or two from everybody else. Like I felt like when my situation, because I was away from home for a few years, quite a few years actually, almost, I would say from my my tween years, is that what it would say? Tween years until like my early 20s, I really was not at home that much. I was working on issues with me, personal problems with myself. So it was almost like I was brought into the doctor's TARDIS and came out 20 years later or 10 years span later. And everything around me was completely different. Like I actually was in the DeLorean in Back to the Future. So when I got back to my neck of the woods, with my parents and stuff like that, 10 years had passed. And to me, it felt like a day, but it was actually 10 or so years. So that actually set me off in a different direction too, on my mind frame and the way I deal with other people or how I react to things. It's not quite the same, but it's almost like they say, again, this is a very bad analysis or comparison, whatever you want to say. But they say when people, because I was thinking about this with that Ford woman, that if she truly is like a rape victim, I don't know. I'd rather not go in that tonight because it would take too long. And I've already gone in 10 minutes. But when people have emotional problems or anything else, they stop growing as a person. Or if you're an alcoholic, you stop growing. And if you're a drug addict, which I'm not, neither or, you stop growing as a person. You only start growing again once you're off what's called an addiction. So if you're an addict of some sort, now it could be with people. An addict doesn't necessarily have to be a substance abuse problem. It could be anything. But when you stop growing as a person, for me, though, it was more than just my thing is, by the way, for people who want to know, mine is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So, but my problems were worked on for many years, but I was out of the normal world. I was in an isolated situation almost, not quite, but outside the real world. So when I was placed back in the real world, 10 or so years had passed me by like snapping your finger. So when I got out, the world that I had left when I was a teenage or a preteen, a teenager, that stuff I've never had lived through like normal people would from the age of 12 years old all the way up to 20-something, 21. That part of my life was gone. And when I was put back into that situation, I was still in the mind frame of being going through my adolescent stages that I never got to live when I was that age. So that actually, I think till now, it's just like a ripple. Well, is that a right word? It's kind of like a ripple effect that, you know, I'm going to, for the rest of my life, try to catch up to the age I should be at. So I'm at least, mentally, at least, probably more than that, according to my friend Matt. He would probably say, well, you're more than 10 years behind. You're more like 30 years behind your age span. So, whatever. But I'm just trying to tell you how I got started. I have no clue. I honestly don't. But I get, okay, because the guy I was talking to, I was like, wow, if this is what I'm supposed to be at this age, I'm far behind. So that's where this all got started. But anyway, getting back on track for a little bit, I hope, because I want to make this simple and easy to edit afterwards. My friend Todd sent me this article on, it happened in Pennsylvania where there was a lawsuit against a high school where this kid, because I've complained about this since day one, and by the way, I haven't mentioned this yet, but just the other podcast I did, the very last one, I don't know when I did it, but that last podcast was my 400th episode of iWalter. When I officially named the show iWalter, and I actually started to establish some type of format, even though it's not a very good one for my show, that was like my 400th episode. So that's unbelievable because I don't do a regular program. I don't do one every single night. I do it when I feel like it or I find something that it's necessary for me to talk about just to get off my chest. So bottom line was, it was my 400th episode. I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. I still don't have any listeners. So once in a while, I'll get a couple people from just having them, hey, you should listen into my show, my podcast. Where do you get it? Well, you can get it actually anywhere. It's not live ever. I mean, I did do a live interview with this guy, Roberta Casada. He was from California, and he was a guy who was, quote unquote, the gaffer for the movie Phantasm. That's a horror movie for those who don't know that. So anyway, going off track again, I apologize. But yeah, there was a thing, and it's titled, it was from a newspaper, PennLive.com. It's plastered everywhere and every tabloid around the world now about this kid who was harassed by 5 women, or 5 girls. I'm not going to say women, they're teenagers still. I know that nowadays even adults in their 60s consider themselves still children. Rude awakening, you're not. But yeah, these are actually teenagers, so they are kids. But anyway, the lawsuit was against 5 girls who made accusations upon one guy. They won't give his name or the women being accused or brought forth for lying. They accused this guy, this teenager in school, I think it was 17 or something, of sexual assault. And I've talked about this a lot. I still ask or question, even with the woman Ford, that she's basically lying about the whole situation. I can't prove it either way, but I've heard different cases, or people call into some of the radio shows I listen to who were truly rape victims. I knew rape victims when I was in my 20s, friends of mine that were girls that were dealing with rape, and they did not act like that Ford woman at all. In fact, they acted quite differently. So I kind of understand a woman who was raped, friends that were women that were raped, and I know how they dealt with it. They don't usually deal with it very well. It causes repercussions, but not the way that Ford comes off, which I think she was a complete and utter liar. But that's just me. So anyway, when I saw this case, it was like I wanted to thank Todd for this. And by the way, like I said, I'm trying to do this tonight because I can't really focus on this with Todd, I don't think. I don't know. Maybe I can. But it was like it's titled. There was so many different articles on this same issue. A lot of different news sources tried to cover this case, and they couldn't get any information out of the high school or the people being accused who were harassing this one individual at this high school. But it says lawsuit cases, mean girls at PA school of targeting boy with false sexual assault accusations. And they are accusations that were false. So I saw a couple of people's comments. One person said they should put women who lie about being sexually assaulted, they should put them in jail for 10 years. And I tell you, I am 100% behind that person's belief. Because it's just like anymore, it happens way too often where women are just crying rape for the wrong reasons. And my reason for behind that was I was more than once, I would say, at least on different occasions, I was sexually assaulted by a woman. Nobody wants to hear it if you're a guy, and nobody wants to believe you. Bottom line. So, yeah, I do take that stuff to heart. I've had friends that were females, girls that were not girlfriends. Well, actually, maybe they were too. But they were friends. And, yeah, I took it to heart with them, knowing that they were, sexually assaulted by whomever. I felt really bad, and I actually empathized with them because I don't think anybody should have to go through that. But when you have somebody who lies about being sexually assaulted, that for this individual, it ruined this kid's life. He had to go to psychological treatment because of the accusations these 5 girls made up. The one girl actually confessed not only to lying, the reason that she made these false accusations of this guy is because of one simple reason. She just didn't like him. And that happened to me, not sexually. I was at Cabrini College years ago, and there was a girl who just, for no reason at all, she didn't like the way I looked, and she could repeatedly, on the campus, she slammed the door in my face repeatedly. And I'm like sitting there perplexed. It's like, why are you slamming this freaking door in my face? What did I do to you? I don't even know who you are. I think her name was Mary Beth. That's all I knew about her. And then after I tried to stop her by just not even touching her, but the door she was slamming in my face, I had a pair of these Doc Martens on. I propped it in the door so she wouldn't continuously slam the door in my face and let other people through this doorway, but not me for who knows what reason. She had no good reason, and she called me a fucking asshole. So, and you know what? I hate to tell you, there was a bunch of guys around at that time. They stood up for her, even though she was the one slamming the door in my face. And technically, yes, that's called simple assault for people who don't know that. They didn't take my side, they took her side. And the same thing happened to this individual at this high school. The school didn't do anything about it. In fact, they tried to protect the guilty parties, all 5 girls. They didn't try to bring forth that they were the guilty party. They didn't do anything about it. And this kid who got wrongfully accused, he was put, I heard, in his house. He was put on house arrest, had shackles on his feet, because I read this article earlier today, so I'm just kind of paraphrasing it. Shackles on his feet, had charges brought against him, which were false, on the sexual assault that he never even did. And again, it was because the girls just didn't like him. They just didn't like him. So they thought it would be great just to harass the guy and make up accusations that, oh, yeah, he has, I have witnesses, which were, the girls stuck up for each other, saying that this guy sexually assaulted him, which he never even touched him. He never even talked to him. So he ended up in juvenile hall for, I think they said 9 days. He was messed up from that. They had taped, I think it said something like duct tape pervert on the back of his shirt. He was like in a choir or band or something like that. I mean, it was nasty stuff. So the parents finally got to the point with their son that they filed a suit against the school, the high school, and the high school said they found out through media sources that they were being sued. They never even knew that. It's like, one thing, you just ignore the whole thing. Two, you're that naive. You don't know what's going on in your own school. Well, actually, they were ignoring the whole situation. So, I mean, the whole thing, it was just really pathetic. I felt bad for this guy. And personally, I hope that karma comes his way and that they sue the crap out of that freaking school for every penny they have. I don't care if it disrupts that school district, because they're going to have to pay out a hefty fine for emotional and mental damages they did to this kid. But you know what? That's the only way they're going to learn. And the fact that this came out like the cat was let out of the bag, or whatever you want to say, or Pandora's box was open, I don't know how you want to phrase this. But after that happened, now all of a sudden they're very concerned about this poor kid's well-being. It's like, okay, well, the damage has been done. And you know what? It wasn't just an isolated case that happened it is an isolated case. It wasn't that the case only just happened recently. It started last year, and it continued on from last year. They let this linger on. They covered up and victimized the girls, the 5 girls. They acted like they needed the protection and allowed this harassment to go on for over a year with this kid. So, yeah, okay, I'm looking at paraphrasing through the article right now, and it says after 28 days, I guess he was in house arrest for 28 days. He is being homeschooled. He will not go back to that school. The kid is so messed up. And people don't realize, if it's over a year of being harassed by 5 individuals, all females, not only is he going to be messed up he's going to be messed up for the rest of his life. That's the bottom line that really upsets me. Now, I'll complain about this stuff, but nobody ever wants to hear me complain about it. They're tired of hearing me complain about it, I guess. But, the thing is, if the shoe was on the other foot with this situation, and it was a female in this case and not a man, I would guarantee you the situation would have been resolved a lot faster. And it wouldn't have to have gone as far as it did. So that's the thing that just really bothered me, and I did want to get that off my chest. Again, I actually wanted to do stuff that I could have probably discussed a little bit with Todd, and I'm sure he would have agreed, but or wanted to discuss it, because he's the one who sent it to me. That's the only reason I know about it. A couple other things were, there was another story that actually my friend Todd sent to me, and it was by a web link that is actually on Facebook, I believe, as well. And it says, the name of it is Black British World. So it was a young teenage kid. And again, it's a woman making herself victimized with a black kid on the train in London. And the woman, like, it was a crowded train. I've been in on those. I'm sure everybody else has at one point or another. I've been on a train going down to Philly about a month or two ago. I had to meet with some company, some type of government official down there on personal business, and I had to meet them down, I think, in Center City. So the place, it's for people, so the people don't get the wrong idea. It was for people with disabilities. I have a learning disability. So I had to meet with some government thing that deals with cases with people learning some type of disability down in the city. And I had set this appointment up months beforehand. Actually, yeah, it was quite a few months beforehand. So, bottom line was, I was on the train. My dad went down with me at that time. And the train was really crowded. On the way back, I had to stand. It was so crowded. So the bottom line, it was a similar situation. This was on a London train. I don't know if it was the Tube. I believe that's like the big one down or over in England. I think it's called the Tube. So it was a white blonde-haired woman who asked a young black kid, "Can you get up?" A young teen. It says black teen. Could you get up out of your seat? She wanted a seat. Well, it's like, the kid said, "I really don't want to get up." He didn't make a big issue. He recorded the whole thing, which he was very smart by doing that, by the way. So the woman got pissy with him. Like, if I was her and the guy doesn't want to get up, it's his right not to get up. The kid didn't have to get up. There was plenty of other people she could have asked, can I have your seat since I'm a woman? If that kid didn't want to do it, that's his preference. You can't stop the kid from doing it. So this woman, the whole thing is on my Facebook page, which is, for those who don't know, on Facebook. I do have my iWalter Facebook page, which I tell people that's my business page because it is. But I also have my own personal page, which is just Walter Interrante. And that one has the video of this woman yelling at this guy for no reason at all, just because he doesn't want to get up out of his seat. He has every right. I'm sorry to tell you, he has every right. And ladies, you want equal. You want to be treated equally as a man. Well, this guy was doing it. Hey, if you want to be treated like a guy, I'm going to treat you like everybody else because that's what you always ask for. She makes it into a big blowout where she's screaming at the kid because he won't get up out of his seat. And it's like, again, why don't you just get somebody else to ask, do you mind if I have your seat? I'm sure there was plenty of people on this train that would have done it. I believe it looks like a train. Could have been. No, I think it is a train. So anyway, she goes to the train conductor or at the train station or the front, wherever she had to go, or she called. I can't remember exactly all the details. I'm looking at it, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. And she basically said the guy sexually assaulted her. And you can see clearly the guy never touched her. He just did not want to give up her seat. So this woman turned a simple situation where this kid didn't want to give up his seat into a situation of a race issue, which it definitely was, and also an issue of that, he sexually assaulted me. And it was like, the guy didn't even touch you. I looked at this video. There is nothing in there. And guess what? They threw the poor kid off the train. The kid says, I'm trying to get home, from work. So they blamed him for not giving up his seat. And it's like, aren't we kind of past this? Isn't like England supposed to be so much about political correctness and stuff? And then you make these false allegations on this kid who doesn't want to give up his seat. And I'm like looking at this. A friend sent it to me. It's like, I can't believe what I'm looking at. I think it's the most, crazy thing I've ever seen in today's times. We're talking about the 21st century, and these people from the left, as I like to call them, who are so politically correct and how they support whatever. They support women's liberation. They support equal rights for everyone and equal respect for everyone. But yet when push comes to shove, they don't show any of that stuff. They show their true colors, which is ignorant and just acidine behaviors. So that's what I wanted to mention on that one. And I really felt bad. I told my friend, I said, that kid had every right. He did nothing wrong. If he doesn't want to give up his seat, that's one thing. Now, falsely accusing the kid of sexually assaulting this woman, which he never did just because he wouldn't give up his seat, is the most idiotic and craziest thing I've ever saw. And I felt bad for that kid, and especially the way he got treated. So I'm just saying. Anyway, on a lighter note, maybe I should just give two lighter notes because, God, this is going a little longer than I wanted. There's this really, I love her music. I'm going to address Taylor Swift. I love her music. She did some crazy commercial of her cats that the cats were talking for a direct TV Now commercial. And somebody put it up and it was like, yeah, this is actually really funny. She looks a little odd because she's got these like I don't know if people are familiar with the old Howard Stern when Gary was like the most prevalent thing on the show. His producer, I guess, is that guy Gary, and he had these big freaking buck fake teeth. You know, he had caps on all his teeth because he had really bad teeth. Well, apparently Taylor Swift had really bad teeth, so she's obviously got these caps that look like horse teeth. Because Gary always got picked on that on Howard Stern. He had these humongous teeth that were so big that Howard Stern used to pick on Gary all the time and said, yeah, he keeps on having to lick his lips because his teeth are so big, they keep on drying out. And they did look like horse teeth. If you look at a horse and you looked at Gary's mouth, it really did look like he had horse teeth in his mouth. And Taylor Swift looks the same way. Like the teeth are twice the size of her freaking mouth. And it just looks really ridiculous. So anyway, in the commercial, it's really obvious with her big buck fake teeth. And I hate to say that. I love her music. And I wish she would have stuck with that and stayed away from politics. But now that she had to say, well, I think everybody should vote Democrat or something like that, or for some particular Democrat, you know, it's almost like I got to break the bottle over the bar table and start, you know, a no-holds-bar fight with her, even though I really do love her music still. Don't ask me why. It doesn't make any sense. But the video, by the way, or the commercial, is god-awful, is very funny. That's what I wanted to say. It's very, very funny. And talking about funny, for a split second, they were showing, like, on YouTube. I was checking for something on YouTube. And there's this thing about, like, the best 10 top, Super Bowl commercials of all times. So some of them were funny, but I still remember this, folks, when I was, like, younger, when they put that on. I think the funniest commercial out of all the commercials for the Super Bowl, the one that makes me laugh the hardest is the Terry Tate office linebacker ones. So I had to look that up tonight, and I swear I almost pissed my pants. I don't watch football. I have no idea how sports works. But Terry Tate playing a linebacker in the office to keep people from goofing off. I remember those commercials being on TV, and I never, ever laughed. Well, I do. I have since then, but I mean, I've never at that time laughed as hard as those Terry Tate commercials. Though that guy was freaking hilarious. So I had to mention that because I'm looking at it right now. It's like, yeah, I forgot all about the Terry Tate commercials. Again, those were like excellent commercials. I mean, that's why commercials were like made them big, is because they were really funny. Geico had a bunch of funny commercials. Sorry about that, but they kind of cut back from doing really funny ones. There was a friend from my other job, which I hope I go back to someday, had mentioned, put up this post on Stormy Daniels, and I was laughing the other day about this, but he put up a joke picture of Stormy Daniels, and it says Stormy Daniels, because she lost her case on sexual allegations against Trump. She lost it. She lost it, all right, but she lost the case. So the judge is making her pay for the court fees and everything else that would have had to been paid by Trump. She's got to pay the whole court situation out of her pocket. So he's got this like picture of Stormy Daniels, because I couldn't recognize her at first, and she like looks like a street bum, and she's selling things on the street corner, and it says, when you realize you have to give up Trump all the money you've raised. So basically, yeah, Stormy Daniels is another woman who like had a cry rape, and she's a freaking porn star. I've never heard of a porn star crying rape. Do you understand that, folks? A porn star who makes porn movies where you have sex in the movies is crying rape. I mean, but towards Trump, which the whole thing was nonsense from the get-go. I mean, I just don't understand people. But, I mean, it's like a prostitute, you know, not that I would, but it was like if you got a prostitute off the street, you paid them, and they turn around and say, oh, yeah, that guy raped me. And in today's times, that would actually fly. So you pay for a prostitute, she automatically becomes the freaking, She becomes the victim, and this is her business. People pay her to have sex with her, but yet she's the victim. I mean, today the world we live in today just makes my head like really wanted to spin off like a top. I don't understand that at all. So anyway, I did want to mention that. On a lighter note, I got to lighten the mood. I didn't even get to the main point tonight. What I want to talk about, which was the new Doctor Who, and I hope, because I don't want to like a 3-hour show and then go to bed and get up in like an hour, because I've done that before and it's too much. So anyway, I was flipping through YouTube this afternoon again, and I pulled up this thing on an old thing, which I totally didn't know this, or I forgot about it. But they had this thing on Johnny Carson, for those people that were alive back then when Johnny Carson was the talk show host for the Tonight Show. And he had on Hulk Hogan. It was like the thing that caught my eyes was Hulk Hogan had hair. Because if you ever seen Hulk Hogan, he's like completely bald on top, and he's just got like that outline of blonde hair around his head. Well, this video segment from an old Johnny Carson show from 1982, Hulk Hogan had a full head of hair. And it was like, oh my God, I didn't even recognize him with hair. You know, Hulk Hogan was the big wrestler from back in the day. Well, get this, I didn't realize this, that Hulk Hogan, in one of the Rocky movies, I don't know which one it was, he was one of the contenders against Rocky, in the Rocky movies of Sylvester Stallone. And the weird thing is, Sylvester Stallone looked like a little kid next to Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan is a very tall man. And they were asking, because I was watching part of the segment with Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson asked him, like, how big are your arms? He said, well, they're size. And Hulk Hogan answered, well, they're the size of most women's waist. They're like size 26. His arms were the size of a woman's waist. And Johnny Carson just joked, and he said, well, I wish I had something that was 26 inches wide or something like that. It was really funny, but it was like, wow, that man was like incredibly built. I never knew how tall Hulk Hogan was. I just remember growing up when I was a teenager, and people, like these young kids, would always like have to talk about or watch wrestling, and I never understood wrestling. I never understood it because it was fake. And it was just kind of idiotic to me, but it was really big. And Hulk Hogan, even if you did not like wrestling, what they call quote unquote professional wrestling, you still liked Hulk Hogan because the guy was kind of cool, and he became like a big celebrity. They even made cartoon out of the Hulk Hogan's character, or the person Hulk Hogan. They had a cartoon with him, like, because he was really big. But I didn't realize that he was big in other ways, too. Like, he was really tall. For those people who can watch the video, I'm putting my hand over my head. I mean, he was much taller and much more muscular than even Sylvester Stallone, which was unbelievable. And the guy had hair. That's the thing that stood out. So let me see what else I have on my list. Okay, I'm going to try to get through the nonsense first and maybe just end it with the stuff I really wanted to talk about. Again, which would be the new Doctor Who, which I really loved it. The episode from this past Sunday. Because this Sunday I'm not going to be able to watch it until I get home the next day from work, which won't be until like 20 of 11. So I'll have to wait until Monday night to watch it. It's going to really suck. Because I actually do. I'm curious to see if they're going to keep the momentum, the speed, or whatever, the steam going on the new Doctor Who. Are going to? I mean, she's already proved herself to me, but I'm just wondering, are the storylines going to be as good as last week's? I'm always afraid about that. I've learned with the new series, you can't really depend on each week being as good as the week before, because they've what is it now? They brought it back in 2005. The 13 years it's been back, they've had some pretty bad ones on too. Anyway, it was on Breitbart. They had this story. I don't know if my friend Todd sent it to me or if I found it or what. But it was on Breitbart, and it says biological man wins women's cycling championship. So basically, it's one of these, I'm going to do it for people who can watch my video, transgender females. and they win a race. Well, this is the issue with this thing. If you were born a man and you get reconstructive surgery because you feel like you're a woman, in competitive sports, that is not fair. It's just the bottom line. You're not being fair to the other ladies, because it doesn't matter how much you change your exterior, you're still a man. No matter how you look at it, you're still a man. So physically, you're going to be much stronger and a lot more faster, probably in certain and stronger in certain sports. That is an advantage you should not have if you're, quote unquote, a woman. So that to me is unfair. It says a biological male claiming to be a transgender woman won the 2018 UCI Master Track Cycle and World Championship in Los Angeles over the weekend. Well, to me, that person, I don't care if they think they're a female and that everybody else agrees with that, they should have been disqualified. That's all I want to say. They should have been disqualified. That's just me, though, again. Now, anyway, by the way, one last note on Stormy Daniels. Donald Trump had called her horse face. Excuse me, I'm like spitting right now because I'm kind of laughing at the same time. I heard that on Rush Limbaugh today. He was saying how Trump, he shouldn't have really done that, but he called Stormy Daniels horse face. I thought that was hilarious, though. I don't know if I agree with it. I just think it was funny. And yeah, when she lost that case, Stormy Daniels, just going back to that real fast, I thought that was freaking hilarious. It couldn't happen to a worse person. Let me put it that way. And it did. It happened to an excellent candidate who was a complete freaking liar. So, good riddance. Thank God she got burned really bad, too. Theoretically, not literally. I wish she would have. Literally got burned, for those who don't understand me. Anyway, I'm still laughing at this one post. It's been cycling on Facebook for quite a while. But it's it's a sign for KFC. I don't know if it's real. It kind of does look like a real sign. It doesn't look like it was, kind of altered through Photoshop. But it says Taylor Swift special. Maybe that part was, though. I don't know. But it has, it's a KFC sign, like what's on special. And underneath, it says the Taylor Swift special, 2 bony thighs, 2 small breasts, and a left wing. I thought that was, for those who don't understand that, left wing means the people that are Democrats or like complete left would mean you're like a radical leftist or, a person who is beyond just being a Democrat who is like into getting everything for free. I mean, you're out there. I made a joke with this guy at work. I call California everything. I call that the left coast because it really is. So anyway, a couple other stories before I get to my beefy one, and it is going to be probably an hour tonight or close to it, unfortunately, for everyone, including myself, because I have to hear this back. It says Dracula. This was on a Variety, a website called Variety Link. It's a magazine, I believe. Dracula series from Sherlock, the people who make the series Sherlock, team to launch on BBC and Netflix. So they're going to make a Dracula series. I wonder how good it's going to be. Sherlock was really good, but the thing I'm a little worried about, the ex-producer to the last couple seasons of Doctor Who, he's kind of associated with this, and I really did not like him. The new producer, I apologize. The old producer for Doctor Who for the last so many years, he's going to be involved with this, so that really scares me. I don't like the way he kind of approaches things. I didn't like the way he did it on Doctor Who, at least. And the new producer, I really do like. So far, he's done an excellent job. The new producer actually worked with Jodie Whittaker on another show, so that he was really familiar with her. I want to get into Jodie Whittaker as soon as possible, because I had a lot to say about that. And it's not bad, trust me. It's actually all pretty damn good, on my opinion, Anyway, this was kind of funny, and I was glad to see this. I'm just a heartless bastard, for people who really do know me. But there was this thing, I think, on my AOL News, because, you got this news segments when you try to go for AOL Mail. My mail account is actually AOL, but I had to get AOL in order to keep my domain name or my email address from Verizon. So I've had the same email address for like 20 years. I didn't want to lose it because Verizon no longer supports email. So they sold it to AOL. So I had to, sign up with AOL just in order to keep my Verizon.net account. So I got to look at all this nonsense, and it is left news, left coast news most of the time. But this one was just too good to not post on my Facebook page. And it was that, how do you say that? Adriana Grande and Pete Davidson reportedly call off their engagement, which ends their romantic relationship. And it was like, you know what? That made my day. I'm just so sick. You look at the guy, and he's like a total goofball, for one thing. He's funny. He is very funny. He's on SNL. He's the younger guy. He's very funny. But I just didn't see those two together, and she's just plain annoying. She's very funny. When she was on this show years ago, it was called Victorious, from Victoria Justice, had her own show on, I think it was on Nickelodeon. And yeah, I was watching it because I thought it was like awesome. It was a great show. I used to watch a lot of kids shows. I haven't recently, but certain shows, I just like the kids shows a lot of times because they're less violent. They're actually definitely very entertaining. And a lot of these kids do have a ton of talent that I won't deny that they have it. So I would watch it for that. And Adriana Grande was on that show of Victorious, which she was very funny on there. But I've understood over the years that she, in real life, she's a real piece of work. That's the best way I can put it. So, and she's just like really full of herself. And it's like, okay, that's just like a turnoff right there. I don't like people like that. Anyway, I do have, unfortunately, it's not a very heartwarming story. It's actually a very depressing story from Denver, Colorado, where the story was about a 9-year-old boy who kills himself after being bullied just days after coming out. Meaning that, I don't know how a 9-year-old would know this, but this 9-year-old boy came out as being gay, and he got so severely harassed, he ended up committing suicide. So I don't care who you are. I don't really necessarily need, when it comes to kids, it breaks my heart to see a little kid that's 9 years old. If he came out and he believed he was gay, I don't know what made him think that, but the fact that he was really, bullied for coming out, saying, hey, I'm gay, and other kids not understanding that, and bullying the kid enough that he felt like his life was worthless, I don't appreciate that at all. That is something where are the other people from the school? If this kid, was going around saying, hey, I'm gay, where are the teachers to defend this kid? Not that they have to follow him, but obviously they let this kid fall under their radar and allowed him to be, basically bullied. Excuse me, I'm spitting right now too. They allowed this kid to be bullied. So yeah, that's something I know I dealt with in school. I got bullied really badly. So again, it's something I personally take to heart when I find out that somebody, because I was that age and it caused me to have a nervous breakdown at age 12 because of being really, really bullied. So yeah, when I hear stories like that, I don't think that's cool. And I do blame the school system for that one too, by the way. Just to let you know, that's just me. Well, this is an interesting story. I didn't even know this one. This just popped up. I'm going to have to save this one and send it because, again, another gruesome story. Unfortunately, woman kept in captivity for 19 years and gave birth to 9 children. I might have heard about this before. So a girl was held in captivity for 19 years and gave birth to 9 children, which obviously means she was... Now, see, here's a case where a child was truly sexually assaulted, but do people really want to hear about that, or they want to hear about these bogus stories about some woman who claims she was raped, like Ford. Well, let me guess. If it will further the left's agenda, I hate to tell you, the real victims, nobody wants to hear about. I'm putting this story up now, by the way. That's why you're hearing all this rattling. So, this is why, again, this is what bothers me. You know, what the left finds very important to themselves, or to, as long as it furthers their agenda, then it's a very serious story. If it doesn't further their motive, then they don't want to hear about it. And, I mean, I'm curious about this one. I don't really want to read it because I'm actually going up to an hour now, and I didn't even get to my main story. So, yeah, actually, for those who are interested, I did put it on my Facebook page, this article. I found it from I don't know what this news source is. I've never seen it before. The story popped up, and obviously it's pretty sad about this poor girl who was held in captive and obviously raped multiple times. But yeah, it's not important because it's not going to further the left's agenda on what they believe in, so you're never going to really hear about it anywhere else except from iWalter. So anyway, I did go through all my stories, thank God, and I do want to talk about Jodie Whittaker for at least the next 10 minutes, at least. Maybe less. Maybe I can get it out in less words than an hour or 2 hours like I normally do. Sorry about that. I just hit my mic. I'm a little bit tired, too, a little bit crazed. I watched Sunday's show, and I was so impressed. I was so impressed. Let me do this for the people with the camera. That's my the Dr. Sonic Screwdriver. You know what the funny thing is about the new Doctor Who? That was the first Doctor who does use the Sonic Screwdriver, which was actually, for those, here's a little pop quiz, and I'm going to give you the answer anyway. Who was the first Doctor Who to have a Sonic Screwdriver? Now, most people are going to say probably Tom Baker, if that's what you grew up with. Others will say, because he had it quite a few, or at least once, was John Pertwee. And that's not correct. The first person to have a Sonic Screwdriver and called it that was no, it wasn't William Hartnell. It was Patrick Troughton, where he pulled out what looked like if you're from England, you're going to say it looked like a torch, which in America would be a torch as a flashlight. It looked like a little pen light, and he flicked on it, and they asked, what is that? And he says, oh, it's a Sonic Screwdriver. So, yes, Troughton was the very first one to actually say that he had a Sonic Screwdriver. Actually, Troughton, I believe, was the first one, and one or so episodes did present Jelly Babies for those who are old school Doctor Who fans. So it wasn't Tom Baker on either or, but they were things that were definitely more noted when Tom Baker's Doctor came about, were the Jelly Babies and the Sonic Screwdriver, and then it kind of followed through with Peter Davison, but then it got destroyed. And on the new series, the first thing they brought back was the Sonic Screwdriver, a different form of it. For those who can see the camera on YouTube or anywhere else, this is a Sonic Screwdriver on the new show. Well, this one, the Doctor made from scratch. So, Jodie Whittaker made her Sonic Screwdriver from alien technology that she found, and also, get this, from silver spoons. So, I don't think mine has it on here. If you get actually the replica or a replica from the Doctor Who TV show, they said on one part, I'm trying to look right now, and obviously they did not do it with this plastic toy that I'm holding in my hand. They said the name of the company who made these silver spoons, or some name that these spoons were made from, some big company in England, I assume, that you can actually see on the Sonic Screwdriver. They did that deliberately. You can still see the name of the Silver Spoon Company on her Sonic Screwdriver, and the reason they did that is to make sure you knew And it's like a detail you won't see on screen, unfortunately, but they did point it out on, like, okay, the making of Doctor Who for Jodie Whittaker, that the guy actually pointed out, yeah, the name of the silver spoons that she melted down to make her, metal or metallic sonic screwdriver was actually made out of spoons. Now, the part, for those who can see it at home, that I'm pointing that orange thing here, I think it's like an orange light, that was actually taken from the first episode from Alien Technology. So there was many things to like about, so far, Jodie Whittaker's Doctor Who. And for those who can watch my camera at home, I'm holding my action figure I got of Doctor Who. That I actually did buy from England. It only costs like $10 or $20. I forget. That's the shipping too, by the way. So Matt, don't have a conniption fit that Walter, you're spending way too much money for a person who doesn't even have a job. I didn't spend that much money. Trust me, I wouldn't have bought it otherwise. So anyway, wait, where did I put her? Okay, she's still here. I'm gonna make sure Jodie's in the picture, in my pod video cast. So the first episode I thought was horrible, but I think Jodie Whittaker, as they knew Doctor Who was beyond excellent, she had me fully convinced. But the beginning of the second episode was just like my mind exploded because it was that good. I mean, I didn't expect anything that good. Why am I saying that then? Because a lot of people wouldn't understand this. If you grew up with Doctor Who, you watched, even today, if you watched the older episodes, and it was the same feeling that I had when I watched all of Tom Baker's, most of Peter Davison's, and then they decided, like, well, Doctor Who has been so popular in the U.S. back in the day when I started watching in the late 70s, early 80s and on, something like that, that they started showing the old episodes, starting with, well, I understood, actually, John Pertwee back in 1970, they were showing those as first runs on PBS in the U.S. They were actually showing those as they were coming out of England. But by the time I got to them, because it was from 70 to 74, I was seeing John Pertwee in reruns. So only by a few years, though. And Tom Baker was actually relatively new, but he actually was on for 7 years. And as much as I just said he was relatively new, he actually just had ended when I really picked up on Doctor Who as a kid. It was a few years afterwards that I picked up on it. I went to conventions in Philadelphia, Doctor Who conventions from creation. But it was actually, I'm trying to think right now, when I actually got to Peter Davison, I was actually caught up, and those were coming to the U.S. as brand new episodes. So from Peter Davison on, I was actually watching those as brand new episodes. In fact, the Five Doctors had was broadcasted, which pissed off the people in England, one day ahead of what England got to see it. You know, it was in an hour. I think it was an hour and a half special. It was like one episode, which they do now, but the old Doctor Who's were cut up into 4 parts. So each episode was actually 4 parts. Some of them were longer. Back with John Pertwee, they were actually 7 episodes, and with Hartnell and Troughton, they could have lasted a whole season. Like one episode could have lasted like 12 parts or whatever, and there was a couple like that. I think the second episode ever aired, which was called, it was shortened the title because each episode had a different title name. It was called The Dialects or something, and that was back in 1963. That was like 12 episodes or 10 episodes. The War Games with Troughton was definitely 10 episodes. I apologize. Let me rephrase that. It was 10 parts. Now, with Hartnell, they actually named the parts different names, but they were actually parts. So let me go over that. Original Doctor Who's were a lot longer per episode. They could have lasted, if you watch it in its entirety, up to 2 to 3 hours, maybe 4, because they were divided up into parts. They didn't really worry about making a 40-minute, 50-minute segment for one episode. They actually, were able to make it as long or as short as they wanted. Because there was a Hartnell episode that was actually 2 parts, or I think it was 2 parts. And that was William Hartnell, and that was only there were 22 minutes a pop, so it was less than 40 minutes. Probably if you took out the title screens, it was probably more like 30 minutes. So it fluctuated on how long the episodes really were back in the day, but they were parts. And again, what I was trying to get at, because I kind of diverted, but when they started going back to William Hartnell's, and I was watching this whole time, Tom Baker was kind of unsure why Tom Baker changed into John Pertwee, who was his predecessor, and then into Peter Davison. So when it all came together, I was like, wait a minute, this is a show about an alien who changes his physical shape, his now his sex, but he changes his whole entire image of what he looks like physically. And even his personality slightly changes. The root person underneath has always been the same with the original episodes. All the actors played the main focus of Doctor Who exactly the same, but then his personality, the way he looked physically, the way he dressed was completely different. It's kind of weird, but in the way it was explained is that his brain cells would get kind of not only regenerate, but they would kind of get swished around in his head, which caused a different personality. That even though the root part of the Doctor has always been the same, the change is so drastic physically on him that it changes his personality to act a little bit different. The thing about concerned about human beings and taking care of people, that's always been the same with Doctor Who. But then, his physical outlook actually changed his personality, if that makes any sense. So anyway, when I was watching him, again, it was all Tom Baker's. And then when I went back to Hartnell, it just blew my mind when he went into the TARDIS, and you seen that the TARDIS looked no different, because now they change the TARDIS all the time, by the way, the interior, not the exterior. But it was the same police box back in 1963 that I saw in 1970-something, in the 80s, then the 90s, and even in the 21st century. So, but the first time I experienced going back to the original Doctor Who, William Hartnell, it just blew my mind, because it was just so fantastic that you had this completely different actor who is the same exact person that, characteristic-wise, that you've seen with Tom Baker. And it was so different, but in a lot of ways it was very different. But the core character of the Doctor was still the same. And I honestly, on the new shows, I didn't see it that much. And I'm saying up to the point, up until Jodie Whittaker, did I actually see what I grew up with as a kid, and what I fell in love with was put back into the show for the first time. I mean, David Tennant did an excellent job as Doctor Who. He definitely looked like Doctor Who. But there was that whole thing where he had this love interest in his companion, which you never saw in any of the actors. The actors who played Doctor Who, from Hartnell to Sylvester McCoy being the last one on the original series, the Doctor never showed any type of human emotion, minus that he's very concerned about human beings. But as far as romance, that was never there. Never. With any of the actors who played the first 7 Doctor Who's. And that's what I grew up with. That's what I liked. And the Doctor, one thing that the characteristic of the Doctor, all the way through his regenerations, as I call him, is that you never solved anything with weapons or with violence. You basically dealt with serious issues. If you don't show that you have weapons or that you're going to be a dangerous person to whomever you encounter, they generally, I know it's not very realistic, I'm just saying, but you can generally negotiate with logic. And that's the way the character of Doctor Who had always been. A lot of that stuff changed when Christopher Eccleston, even with this Fox TV movie that was done in the U.S. years ago, was a Fox movie of Doctor Who. They were trying to make the BBC show of Doctor Who in the U.S., and it failed. But from that time on, up until Jodie Whittaker, it's always been like a completely different show, not what I grew up with as remembering Doctor Who being like. Jodie Whittaker, even though she's a woman, I did not see that in the character. What I saw for the very first time since probably because I wasn't a big fan of Sylvester McCoy. I'm going to let you know right now. I thought the guy was a joke. I'm sure the guy in person is very nice, the actor, but the way they portrayed the character was awful. And I actually bought all from Germany. I bought all the episodes in a box set that was released, I think, this past year of all Sylvester McCoy's episodes. Why it was released in Germany, I have no clue, but I just know that was a fact. And it was a box set with all his stuff. And I'm like trying to watch these, and it's like, I can't get any further with these. These are just plain awful, and I still believe that. So I stopped watching. I really tried. But every actor who played Doctor Who up to Colin Baker, which now I met twice. I met him just this past year. It's Colin Baker who played Doctor Who. The character always had that key ingredient that, again, I fell in love with when I started watching Doctor Who back on PBS. And it was his belief system, his concern for people, and that you don't settle anything. Again, I wouldn't say I believe this in real life, but I did love it on the show because I actually kind of used the character of Doctor Who as a role model. And the role model was you don't disrespect others. You respect other people. That's what I came out with growing up. Again, I used the character of Doctor Who as a role model. Well, that was lost on these new episodes, and a lot of them are really bad. This episode, especially the second one with Jodie Whittaker, brought it was like, okay, whatever happened I'm trying to think when Colin Baker, he actually got fired from the way they changed the character, and people didn't appreciate it. I liked it. But and actually his second season, he was, technically he was only on for 2 seasons. They say it's 3, but it was really only 2. But, so I'll probably go back further because I did like Colin Baker. The last remnants of a true Doctor Who would have to be then with Peter Davison. So let me go back to Peter Davison. Well, that span between Peter Davison to Jodie Whittaker, everything in between, give or take some of the episodes that were pretty damn good with Colin Baker, because there was a couple that I really liked with him. But that span between Peter Davison then, some of Colin Baker's, until now with Jodie Whittaker, everything between does not kind of go in a consistent manner. But if you look at what she had brought forth into the character, she brought back the old Doctor Who that I respected. It was like I wanted to get my lighter if I had one. I don't. So it would be my virtual. Well, maybe I should just get my sonic screwdriver and go like this, where you hold it up over your head and you're like holding a lighter at a concert. That's how much I loved the way she played the character and how much I loved the second episode. It was old school Doctor Who all over again. I mean, it was like 70s, 60s, and 80s Doctor Who that was brought back. So the only unfortunate thing, I'm not sure how other people are going to appreciate this, because I mentioned in an article I wrote for iTunes that never got posted, I pointed out that the beginning of the episode was directly taken from a Troughton episode, and I think it was called The Celestial Toy Maker, maybe. I think it was that episode. It was something like that, where the Doctor, who was Troughton, and his companions, which I don't think it was Polly. I can't remember now. I can picture him. Jamie was one of them, where the TARDIS kind of falls apart, and they're just like in space, floating in space. And the beginning of the second episode with Jodie Whittaker, they were in outer space, in like just in space, and they got picked up from a rocket ship or a passerby. It was like, and the way they shot it was just like they did in the 60s. They did something similar, I believe, with Tom Baker, because I mentioned this. For those who watched Tom Baker's Genesis of the Daleks, when they were first being made, supposedly, even though that's not the timeline, it's not accurate to the timeline with the Daleks, the Pepperpots. But there's that episode where the Time Lords come to the Doctor and say, you need to either destroy or at least set back the pattern of the Daleks, because if they continue in the pattern they were going, mankind is going to be dead throughout the universe. So the Time Lords interfered with the Doctor, which pissed him off, and said, you got to go back to Skaro. That's where the Daleks originally came from. And you need to slow down this history of the Daleks so mankind can at least try to survive. So they took his TARDIS, had taken his TARDIS away, and they gave him this thing called a time ring. So all three of them, in order to get back to the TARDIS, they first had to accomplish their mission, but they were in space again. It was Sarah Jane, it was the Doctor, and it was Ian, who was another companion to that Doctor. So that was taken from Tom Baker's era. It was taken from Troughton's era, his time of being a Doctor. And also John Pertwee had similar episodes like that. Like, it felt like a Doctor Who episode for the very first time. And I actually was like, thank you for doing this. Thank you for getting Jodie Whittaker, because she did an excellent job. Thank you for shooting like the old Doctor Who's. The whole episode. I mentioned on this particular second episode of Doctor Who with Jodie Whittaker, she played it just like the original Doctor Who's. They had that core feeling, because most of the actors with the new ones, Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith, and who was the other one that I'm drawing a blank with? Peter Capaldi. They all kind of mimicked whatever Christopher Eccleston brought forth, or David Tennant changed a little bit, and it was completely different, the character, than the way it was designed back in 1963. I mean, it evolved in a certain pattern. Well, Jodie Whittaker was the first actor to bring back what Doctor Who was originally meant to be. It felt like Tom Baker. It felt like Troughton. It felt like Troughton, Peter Davison. It felt like old school Doctor Who is what she brought forth. And that was like, thank you so much. You finally have somebody who knows how to play the character correctly and do it actually really well. She did an incredible job. So again, it was like, wow, you got like good writers, a good producer, and an excellent actor to play the part. And hands down, she's like the best actor out of all the new ones, since the series has been picked up again for the last 13 years and put on as a regular series again, Jodie Whittaker has done the best job so far. And I even made the joke, she is like, as a tongue-in-cheek joke, she is the best man for the job, even though she's a woman. She is doing an incredible job. And again, it was the first one I watched. The way she acted the character out was Doctor Who. And, she didn't show any interest in anything. Her love is not, of this doctor, is not for, I want to have a romantic relationship with one of my companions. No. Her love interest on this doctor is in the science around her, just like the original Doctor Who's. Like, she's so engrossed on figuring things out and doing things like the Doctor always had been like. That hasn't been seen for the last, even though it's been on for 13 years, but the last 20 years, I mean, when they try to bring the show back even years ago, it was not there. So I hope that Jodie does it more. My fear is she's only going to do it for 3 years. That's my biggest fear. And if they continue to write stuff like they did on the last episode, part of it actually reminded me, for those who probably watched it, was that there's an episode called Caves of Androzani with Peter Davison. That was actually the one he regenerates in at the very end. And this episode reminded me of that. It reminded me of Caves of Androzani. It reminded me of certain Troughton episodes going through these dwellings underneath the ground, like burial dwellings. And there was so much old school Doctor Who material. It kind of reminded me, believe it or not, too, part of that episode, of something like if Douglas Adams was alive, he would say, this is something I would have wrote for the show. This is what I would have... Because Douglas Adams, he wrote the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books. It was like the material that he would write in his books, again, like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books. It was the same type of feel of that, with not the comedy as much, but just the science fiction part of it that Douglas Adams put into his books, because I read all his Hitchhiker books. I read all. God, I can't remember how many there were, like 4 or 5. I did read those all of those books years ago. I just can't remember how many there were. But the bottom line was, it was true science fiction. It was true Doctor Who. And I tried to write this, and it was like, wow. Like, my jaw dropped after I watched that episode. In fact, a lot in the new Doctor Who's, minus Eccleston, I can't watch more than once. I'm sorry. I buy them anyhow, just because I'm a Doctor Who fanatic and I like collecting Doctor Who stuff. But Eccleston was the only person I've watched more than once, and I can't watch all of them because some of them were really bad. Not Eccleston's fault. It was geared more towards making toys and selling the merchandise to little kids. And some of the stuff they reinvented for the new Doctor Who, minus the Daleks, was just plain bad. Like, they destroyed the image of the Master. I wrote some guy who now dresses like Roger Delgado, the original Master. He decided the last couple years, a guy from Australia on Facebook said, I'm going around to these cosplay things as Roger Delgado. And I said, well, I appreciate that. God rest his soul, because they changed that character that Delgado made. Delgado got killed in a car accident. Go into a shoot for Doctor Who. And it was misfortunate. He was driving too fast. And why he was driving too fast is because he wanted to get to the studio on time to shoot his parts for Doctor Who. This was back with John Pertwee. And for some reason, the character, even though, unfortunately, Delgado passed away, got killed in a car accident, the character lived on. The character of the Master, through Tom Baker. And actually through all the Doctors until the show got canceled. And, meaning Sylvester McCoy, originally. So somebody decided, we're bringing the Master back. And they got an excellent actor who was John Sims. If you ever never heard of John Sims, he did a show called Life on Mars. It was an incredible show. John Sims, hands down, is an excellent actor. When he played the Master, it was the worst piece of crap I've ever seen. It was just awful. And then they get they get an actress to replace John Sims, saying that the Master was reinvented and he was reborn as a woman. And they get a beautiful woman. I think she's really incredibly hot. And her name is, her last name is Gomez. She's British, though. She's not Selena Gomez, but her last name is Gomez. Incredible looking woman. She's really, hot looking in guys' terms. Really funny, but they changed the Master into Missy, just to be politically correct. I'm sorry to say this. And they put a dress on the Master. The Master had the sinister goatee. That was what he was always known for, a sinister goatee. And he had, like, the sinister all black on. And it was like, that was Delgado who made the character what it was. And Delgado got killed from doing what he loved most, which was, one, he loved working with John Pertwee, who was the third Doctor Who, and two, he really loved doing the character that they made for him, which was the Master. Now, by the way, Delgado played in a Hammer film. I don't know if he played in more than one, but bottom line is Delgado was known for playing villains, I guess, most of the time. And he made the most memorable villain in Doctor Who, known as the Master. So I wrote this guy, and I said, I thank you for keeping Delgado alive after his death from years ago, keeping the character alive that he played. And I said, also, I'm glad you brought back Delgado's Master, because I said, personally, on the new show had desecrated the character that Delgado had made as the Master. And to me, that was like I said it was disrespectful, and they desecrated the character that he invented. Maybe he didn't invent the character, but he definitely made the actor is the person who makes that character into what it becomes on screen. He's the person who he or she brings that character alive. So what did they do? They did make a joke out of the character, in my opinion, on the new show. So that was one thing that I wanted to mention too. And I hate to tell you, but Jodie Whittaker is doing an incredible job. I hope they continue to write excellent episodes like that. I really hope, but I know it's not going to last for very long. But I'd like to see her. I'm not going to hold my breath, because every actor so far has only played the character for only 3 years out of the new episodes. And Capaldi, I'm kind of glad he left. I love the guy. He did a really funny show on one of the British networks where he played a misanthrope, an office misanthrope. He was a guy who literally hated everyone and had nothing good to say about anybody. So he was a miserable dude who worked in an office facility. And it was a very popular character for years on the show he played. But then they asked him to play the new Doctor Who, which he was tickled pink because he tried to go for the part years ago and he did not get the part as Doctor Who. So you'd think somebody who's a big diehard fan of Doctor Who would do an excellent job. And he probably did, but the episodes were so bad. They were just really bad. But when Jodie Whittaker had taken over, they actually got, with a new producer, new crew for everything, a new interior for the TARDIS. It felt like the interior of the TARDIS is definitely alien-like, more so than ever on the show. It's geared towards Jodie Whittaker's character as Doctor Who. But the bottom line is, it's incredible. The show was great. The episode was well written. You got people that are not only fresh, you got a great actor who's playing the part of Doctor Who. So that's what I wanted to say. I could go on for hours more, but I've actually already got up to an hour and a half. And I got to get this stuff put up online before I go to bed. So, folks, thanks for listening to me. I apologize about that. I want to get this stuff wrapped up. And I hope you enjoy this. I got to watch. I've been eating late at night because I work till 11, and I don't eat before work. I eat after work, and you shouldn't eat that heavy. That's why I'm keep on checking my stomach out. I was like, wow, this is not a good idea, is it? So anyway, by the way, thank you very much for listening to my show. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully this weekend coming, I will have a show and a video cast with my one friend, Todd Thomas. I'm hoping to. And until then, I am signing off. This is Walter from iWalter, and have a good rest of the week. We only got 2 days left, folks, and it's the weekend. So I'm hoping it's going to be a good weekend. I hope it's going to be nice out so we can do some stuff outside, too. Have a good one, everyone. It's Walter. Signing off for now.